Have you looked into Scientology at all? Because we haven't discussed it on this show at all.
Scientology. Well, you have to be careful what you say about Scientology because they're highly litigious. Okay. And one could speculate that it doesn't matter whether they have a good case. It just matters how much money they can cost you. But anyway, so I just want to say right up front that I'm not attacking Scientology. That's not the whole point. Lots of people have said very bad things about Scientology. You have to judge for yourself whether that's true. Boilerplate legal defense, which is right. But it's arguably, one could argue, is that, well, here's my take on it. This is just my opinion. It doesn't mean anything beyond that. When I look at Scientology, what I see is a high-tech exorcism. I've not gone through it. I've known a couple of people who have, but here's what it boils down to. You're infected with alien ghosts. Okay, because the Lord Zeno, a long time ago, some sort of galactic overlord, killed a lot of aliens by putting them aboard 747-looking spaceships and incinerating them, I think killing them with nuclear weapons over volcanoes in Hawaii. Something like that. This involves volcanoes, Hawaii, nuclear bombs, millions of dead aliens. And so their ghosts freaked out and attached themselves to you, body thetans. So you're carrying around these angry alien spirits, not too strange of an idea if you look into the realms of occultism, and they must be exorcised from you. You must be freed from the influence of these parasitic beings that have been attached to you. Now again, that's the way it was explained to me. So you'd have to go to the Church of Scientology to find out you're on. As I understand it, you don't get told that at the beginning. No, that doesn't come in till the very end. Because if you start out with Lord Zeno and volcanoes and aliens, that wouldn't necessarily be the way to do it. No, you have troubles. You can't, it's Dianetics. It's the modern science of mental health. Okay? That's the way that it's built. And if you go in, you go through a kind of therapeutic process. And there's an E-meter, which is some sort of thing that gauges how supposedly, that some people argue that this is an important therapeutic tool. Other people argue that it's quackery. It's a thing with wires and lights that go off, and someone oh, you're sick, the light went off. Well, who knows? I'm not saying it's one way or the other. But it's aroused great, and people want the whole business. Look at how many things cater to the whole idea of self-improvement and of therapy. I mean, this is what you're told. There's something wrong with you. Just whatever you had. There's something wrong with you. You're overweight. You're unhealthy. You need to do this. And you just need to take this, do this, buy this, and you'll be much better. So there's an endless con of self-improvement. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't improve yourself in some way, but again, there's a lot of people that there are things that will actually help you, but there are just as many other things that are just a complete and total con. They do nothing other than they might have some kind of placebo effect, which I guess is an effect. I mean, if it helps, so much the better. And Scientology combines a number of elements. One, it's the Church of Scientology, which some might argue is there in order to get the benefits of being a church, as opposed to a medical group. It combines elements of religion. It provides elements of self-improvement, the whole kind of human potential idea that we can always be something more than what we actually are. And it's very appealing. And some people, it seems to help. Some people derive great benefit from it. Others have argued that it is a gigantic con that deceived them and ruined their lives. Now, what is it really? You'd have to go and find out on your own. But again, it's a matter of controversy. You have different realities, different descriptions as to what this is about. L. Ron Hubbard is an interesting character because he's certainly a guy who has from his standpoint, what's his kind of background? I find two things kind of interesting about it. One, science fiction. He's a science fiction writer. In the 30s and the 40s, he was a science fiction writer in LA, and he hung out with people like Robert Heinlein, and he was also a friend of a rocket scientist and occultist by the name of John Whiteside Parsons, Jack Parsons, JPL. Parsons was a follower of British occultist Aleister Crowley.
There he is.
All right. You knew that Aleister Crowley was going to have to show up, because Aleister Crowley shows up in everything. So Hubbard seems to have absorbed all of this stuff. I mean, he wrote, he wrote science fiction novels. So he was imaginative in that way, a kind of futurist. He understood the appeal of those stories. He knew how to craft a good story. So there are some who argue, as opposed to who theorize, that what Hubbard did, L. Ron in this case, was to take essentially the plot for a sci-fi story and then turn it into this kind of pseudo-religion and market it to people. And he got people to pay him for it. That's an allegation. And that became Dianetics and the Church of Scientology. So you turn fiction into a kind of reality and you market it as an interesting possibility. So here again, you got a case of L. Ron Hubbard, who I think is widely, fairly or not, viewed as as a kind of villainous character, the creator of a pseudo-religion, the manipulator of people, a person who not only manipulates people but ruin their lives, a con man of the greatest, of the first order. And it's possible he was all of that. But it's also possible when he says that he was working for naval intelligence or American intelligence to thwart enemy spies around Jack Parsons, that there may be some element of truth in that.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the interview. If you got anything out of this video at all, please like the video, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought of the video, tell me who you'd like to see on the show. I really appreciate the support. It goes a long way on these platforms, as you guys know. Most importantly, I have some excellent interviews coming up in the future that I'm really, really excited about. So please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of them. But that's it. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it and hope to see you again soon.